We have an Earth,
We do have an
a
Earth.
big round one. Some say it's a big flat one. But anyway, we've got this Earth, and it's our set. We need to be comfortable to perform well. So we have to get to know our set. And I think the job of people like, I think you know Renata, you know William. The job that we have is to help everyone in the world realize that if you're going to perform to the best of your ability, we need to create a world set that supports change and growth.
Right, and it doesn't have to be, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a huge undertaking.
Oh, good statement.
It could just be the acknowledgement of how important it is to stay connected to yourself, how much better you feel.
Yes.
And then we all have situations where we feel disconnected, and then we find a space or a place inside of us that allows us to reconnect. I call that one gratitude.
Good word.
And so often that gratitude, in terms of being a spiritual actor, getting on your spiritual acting gear, you've got to have tools and skills that you utilize. There's like an ever-evolving story coming up inside of me, and my job would be is to work with that, in terms of timing, placement, those kinds of things.
Yes.
And so, as we connect into source, however you want to call that, the universe, allowing more of our creative essence to come out. Like, for instance, let's use Louis, because it was so stimulating, the Nature Summit that I watched. He was talking about how there aren't a lot of examples of visual imagery as healing medicine. So he's taking some of his work into hospitals. And for instance, somebody that is bedridden, and their spine's broken, and they can't turn their head, So while there's auditory music, chanting, bowls, that kind of thing, what about the visual imagery, he thought? And
Good.
I mean, it's been, research that, like runners, for instance, they can entrain themselves to run the race just exactly that way in their sleep, and they can plug them up to biofeedback equipment. We know that's real. Yep. So now we don't need to have all the biofeedback equipment. The idea of scripting a new life, or, as we say, spiritual acting, using your tools would be your wisdom. You take the things that have worked for you.
That's good.
Right, you take the things that have worked for you, and then the things that don't work, I mean, as always, you want to, maybe not dump them on somebody else, but you do want to get rid of them.
But there is the making those things that don't work anymore for you, make them available to other people.
Right, if you, for instance, yeah. And sometimes those things, at least for me with my teachings with, classes and mentorships, especially with the play shop classes, it's like you get to pick, my 30-something years of experience as a healing arts professional, and all the things that I know, in a 4-hour class. You're not going to get everything in a handout. You get a small handout to orientate you, and then I'm your other orientation. Here you go. And you come with your, you as the present, you pay attention, and then I assist you to kind of, circumvent some of the long journey that I've taken, and I make it, the essence of the art of blending and creating products to increase your vitality, to get you unstuck from energies that are no longer, purposeful for you. Yeah, so I bring all of that, I share that. So I get what you're saying.
Right, because one of the things that you do that I think is one typical, write that word down, one typical, yes, is Renata doesn't say, this that I teach is the only way or the best way. She gives the data, she gives the research, and then encourages you to figure out what's right for you.
Well, and clearly, William, our bodies and our temples have morphed in such a way, or evolved in such a way that, we can give instructions to our DNA.
Sure. Yes,
we
yes.
can set new intentions. You can talk to your temple. Maybe that sounds foreign to some of our listeners, but then to others, not at all. The idea of communicating and making connection with your nature, make a connection with your nature to nurture you, and make a connection with nature that's at your fingertips and at your foot tips and that's all around you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the senses as well. And we kind of touched upon that the other evening when we were chatting about some things, how important it is to develop your telepathic skills.
Oh, yes, yes.
I mean, we were talking on the phone, having a good conversation, and all of a sudden, what happened? And then we attempted to reconnect and call each other back a couple of times, and then we just bag it. And then 10 minutes later or so, we got in touch and we were like, oh, isn't this interesting? So we both learned that communication is different and not to be so dependent on, the digital connection. Sometimes the telepathy, and it's going on a lot. I don't know if people are catching it, William. What do you feel on that?
Yes, some.
Yeah. Checkpoint, yeah.
It's so important what you just heard. Practice what you've been taught, and then adapt what you've been taught into what feels good in various parts of your body. Mm-hmm. The smell. Mm-hmm. It's not the smell that you think you're smelling. It's not the taste that you think you're tasting. It's what your sense is tasting.
Right. It is about perception. It's you don't have to separate them necessarily because it's a little bit of a challenge to acknowledge and then not acknowledge. It's kind of a sensory overload that you learn to plug into it as it happens, not as it hits you on the head. Like when you get electrical shocked, you're a little wet and you touch something. It's that same kind of, except for it's more channeled.
Now, that was interesting. I'm backing you up. What Renata just defined, she did it with so much non-verbal energy that I showed the shock at the same time.
And that's really what's going on.
Exactly.
You start to complete your friend's words or your husband,
yes,
whichever.
Yes.
Or you're having a cognitive thought about something and it shows up right in front of you via a book or a TV show where somebody says those words. That is what's going on now. There is not a time per se. I mean, the overlay of the Gregorian calendar and that time frame, whatever.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, it's still there. If you've got to be somewhere like us at 2 o'clock for a show, then we recommend that you show up at 2 o'clock for the show, or change the time frame.
Yeah,
we do have choices. So you get what I'm saying. It's not like you have to separate everything and then experience it. If you weren't part of the magic, you wouldn't be here right now. I mean, that's kind of what I say. You're part of you're it. We're the actors and actresses. We're it.
And that's part of performing to the best level that we can by flowing with what the script that we wrote. Individually you wrote it. Flow with it. If you wrote a script that says you go to work at 7 o'clock, then it's your job to be on set, standing in front of the camera at 7 o'clock.
I mean, that isn't, I love that we've kind of moved to this metaphor, because I find it a lot easier to go with metaphor than we don't have to experience all the stuff, you know?
Exactly.
Like, we've dug enough dirt and buried enough people that we don't have to keep doing that again. We've got enough gravestones, too. So we can just have some fun. And I'm not being, catty about that. Everything's about joyful.
I don't think you are.
And, I'm not making light of all the heaviness. But the only way to match that heaviness is to make it lighter. Notice I said match it. You don't want to resist it. More resistance creates more resistance. You know?
That reminds me, and I've shared this with you in the past and some of the audience. We had a boat dock up in the mountains of California. And when the snows were coming, we would have to move all the boats up onto the dry land.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we'd be a little lazy and we didn't do the pre-seasonal boat movement.
Ah.
So we'd get a group of us together and pretend the water was warm.
Okay.
And we'd walk into the water, freezing our hums off.
Hookahs.
Yes. And we'd all just take our little hands and press on the boat, one boat together. And then suddenly we'd all put our hands under the boat and lift it up because you were reversing energy.
Working, yeah.
You share, everything's energy, everything's vibration. Well, you can work with it. There are
Right.
tools that you can practice. I had a housekeeper in Mexico, and a little teeny thing, but she could lift anything
Did you get lift anything?
because I had showed her use her power, press down, share her energy, and then she could lift a microwave that she'd never lifted before. You are limitless. All of us. Every single one. That's when we deserve the Academy Award. In our spiritual performance.
Seriously, I was just, so the thought just crossed my head. Limitless in our ability to excel and limitless in our ability to fail. Do you know
Oh,
what I mean?
yes.
Because there really is just that dynamic. We've always been we've always been limitless.
Yep.
But we've always been allowed ourselves to be limited. And again, I'm choosing my metaphor in a way that allows you to come in the middle and choose. Even talking about a past tense thing, we've always allowed ourselves, even though it may look like we've been enslaved, and yes, we have, but on a level that we participated. Everybody at times of enslavement wasn't enslaved. A friend of mine, you know Anita.
Oh, yes.
And we're
Wonderful
reading.
person.
Yes, isn't she a sweetheart? We're reading this book, and it's about a gentleman that was, what would you say, kidnapped and imprisoned in Guantanamo for 14 years, and he was like a young kid, 16 at the time, something like that, about ready to go off to university with a scholarship in that. And he talks about how the fellowship inside of Guantanamo, despite the extreme torture, it's actually rather horrifying to read what our government has done, but look what our government is doing now. Okay. And I had a whole different perspective shared with me that I had no knowledge of. And I can hear him talking, which is a hallmark for me to continue reading a book. I can hear him talking, and I'm loving that. I was open enough to accept the gift of the book. Let's read this together and talk about it. That's kind of how she gave me the book, and I'm really appreciating. There's that gratitude again. Like, I've always been on like gratitude 24/7, 365 lately. Just waking up and seeing something like, oh wow. Yeah, I don't know. Even with myself, do you know what I mean? Like being really gentle. Like, you're good.
And gratitude is one of the strongest energies of professional stage acting or professional spiritual acting.
Kind of the same, huh?
Oh, yes.
I say that professional spiritual acting, moving those together in terms of your life plan, you get way more dividends
Absolutely.
than just a
Absolutely.
paycheck. Although I'm not saying a paycheck is great, but even the gratitude knowing that paychecks come in different forms now, we've got to embrace that. It's never been just about the money. It's always been about the power and control over. That's why we've had this particular de-leveling of the human race going on for such a long time.
A lot of Japanese people here in America know the name Noriko Sakai. And a lot of people in the music industry know who she is. She and I were visiting on Skype last night, and we were talking about this exact topic and the sharing of energy, so that she is doing things she never did before. We had a conversation recently in Japan about the French singer Edith Piaf.
Oh, you mentioned that. I don't know who Edith Piaf is.
Oh, she's no longer living anymore.
Oh, okay.
Well, in the physical body.
Sure.
And she had loved her music, but it was foreign. It was nothing she could do. So she just released an album where she sings Edith Piaf music.
Oh, what a great way to honor.
And it is remarkable. Their voices are nothing alike. Their approach is nothing alike. But the energy comes through. And it makes it work. Yes. So be involved with feelings, with energy, your 5 senses, and then your performance, whatever your purpose is, even if it's just to repair automobiles, you will do it with magic.
It's almost like now with the spiritual acting, we need to have a daily practice of being the living meditation. So often people think that meditation is about being in a vacuum, and while you're able to push away a lot of extraneous noises sometimes, but not always. The way I learned to meditate was to be in the zone and to embrace the monkey chatter, as you were, that would come, and then that would pass, and then you would just reach another level. I'm kind of talking outside of myself like you would. Like I would reach another level. So cleaning house for me is in the zone. Dressing is a zone meditative approach for me. Cleaning the house can be a meditative focus where I can just take my energy and really let it spread out, and so it's different for each person. It's different for each person. Daily practice of being a living meditation.
There's a class, a weekend workshop that I do in Japan. I've done it once in America, and we write a new script for the day. We say, this is the plan, this is what we signed up to do. Now let's all sit down together, write a new script, and just go with the flow and see how you perform it. And the miracles that happen, interaction, everyone becomes supportive of each other without any kind of dependency. Mm-hmm. You put together a weekend workshop, and you've got a hierarchy of dependency. But if you rewrite the script, you are able to have no hierarchy. You have instead membership support.
Well, and that's interesting because a lot of our infrastructure with that we have depended on for a long time, our financial infrastructure, our medical infrastructure, just the economics of things, those whole infrastructures are kind of crashing. They are not sustainable. That is why they're shifting.
Yes.
Yeah. So redoing, re-energizing old projects, making them new, super important. And I hear what you're saying. It's like pay attention to opportunities that will arise rather rapidly to shift. To create a new intention.
Yeah.
To create a new intention. Is it important that you speak it? Yeah, at some point you got to speak it and embrace it. I think that's an important part, but maybe not. If you're mute and you don't speak, then that's not going to happen in that way for you. But it doesn't mean on the inners that that's not heard and projected outward, for instance.
What Noriko was saying last night is the movie that she's just releasing, not she, but the producer is releasing, she took the script and performed it the way it felt to her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's already drawing attention. So playing together, not playing opposite each other, playing against each other, play with each other. Well, that was an interesting choice of words.
Yeah. Being open to...
That can be fun too, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. Don't eliminate those abilities, for sure. Sometimes you're your own best company in many ways.
Yes.
And even now it's important to, and I suppose I'm just speaking to myself, is to not seek outside approval. There is nothing incorrect about asking for someone's opinion or their insights, especially someone that you value. Like, what do you think about this? And then you all know the saying, take it with a grain of salt.
Yes.
It may sting a little bit, especially if it's an open wound and you're really looking for someone to say, oh, great job, which is something that I would seek out an awful lot unconsciously. The difference now and then is that I just seek it out consciously now, which is a whole different energy. And again, it's like we said on the way, there's a thin barrier between being paranoid and like everything is messed up and I'm not letting anything in the world, like everything's wrong, and just being selective about the energies, people, places, and things that you allow to influence you. Because this oneness connection is that. There's no like, well, I'm not going to be influenced. Just your intention not be influenced influences you. I'm just saying that we can't escape the multidimensionality energy that we are moving with right now. So don't attempt to do that.
I have to interrupt. Who do I hear talking? Do you hear somebody talking?
That's Chris's, maybe a little bit of the voice on his phone.
Oh, I'm going.
And then I watch the show to see if people are calling in or, like I just text to Mara on the, I've got the,
I thought maybe I was finally taking the leap off the deep end.
And then my iPad's down pretty low, but again, that's good that you bring that up. So we talked about telepathy in terms of your spiritual acting tools, and then we're dovetailing with, using all your senses. So you just said, what's that sound I'm hearing? And I just kind of confirmed, oh yeah, that's Chris on his phone. And then there's lots of things happening all the time. And sometimes we tune into something very specific and, just kind of store that in.
Yep.
But again, it's that communication that we need to be open to. Suppose we lived in an environment in a time, or you and I, where we didn't allow each other just to kind of like question and talk, and well, what is that? To be distracted all of a sudden. Well, what's that bubble of light over there? What's that orb? And we're talking about something totally different. You know what I mean? It's like, what's that? And that's kind of that's some of the things that we have going on. What do you have going on with your family and friends where you allow newness, at the moment? Spontaneous.
I have to interrupt. Do you know, I just this moment realized that that's your leg.
Yeah, because it's more comfortable to say.
I thought, what is that big bump there? No, that's what I've been dealing with. Thinking, what the heck is that big bump there?
Oh, I love it. No, it's my
leg.
Because we moved the screen around because we're playing with just being comfortable and focused. Like, we have no idea what we're doing, even though we've been doing this for kind of a year and a half. Do you know what I'm saying? But Chris is the expert behind the screen, and we play around each time to make it more comfortable. So I don't know. And so I like sitting like this because it's good for the sacrum. So you're like, what is that big lump on the log?
Yes. I thought, what is going on?
But how often can you see something, and because maybe you're like less able to talk, or you've been taught to, be seen and not heard, how that is in some families, you don't say anything.
Right.
And maybe it is a bump in the log growing right in the middle of the room. for instance.
Truthy.
You know? So again, being open to being surprised and just having it be someone's leg there. But it could be something pretty miraculous. That's so funny. I love that.
Well, and I didn't realize until I saw her hand on her knee. I thought, oh, that's part of her.
Thank you very much. I will go home with this other part of me. But it is that spontaneous kind of conversation and connection that we have missed so much. I know I have this last year and a half or so, with so much of the fear being perpetrated on our planet about, dying from this and that and covering up your mouth and getting the jab and the food shelves being empty. There's been so much restrictive, heavy energy placed upon us human beings. It's just not fun. And so an opportunity to laugh spontaneously, I'll take it.
Yes,
I would like to bottle it even and then sip on it again later. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Oh, thank you for that.
Well, it actually tickled inside.
Again, and I feel even more elevated. Isn't that interesting?
It is. Oh, Lord.
I mean, laughter is good medicine, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I remember at least 35 years ago, a member of my board in Phoenix was in hospital. He had been severely injured, and he loved laughter. But he was told, don't laugh because you'll move something in your body
with
and
stitches or
it'll
whatever.
hurt.
Oh, okay.
And so I was telling him some of the raunchiest jokes I could think of. And then the wife called the nurse. And the nurse said, don't make him laugh. You're going to make him worse. And do you know that the more he laughed, soon he was moving around. Yeah. Moving things he had not been able to move.
We're meant to flow like the water as human beings, and so...
Big statement.
We've got blood and lymph, and that gets jammed up, then you get cancer, right? But it's like the lack of flow. So we need to allow the flow in a more graceful way, which is probably more downstream than upstream. It's easier to let the flow follow you in a boat and just flow down than it is to try to paddle upstream. You all get the metaphor. And it really is time for all of us now to allow that boat to flow downstream effortlessly. And, maybe you have a yacht going downstream. You're good.
Oh, yeah.
A little canoe, choice is yours. Doesn't particularly matter. But,
I can canoe.
Oh, he did it again. I can canoe. Is that... Oh, gosh, it's so bad. I'm going to laugh at it. I can canoe. Oh, so that's... Even maybe have some little ready-made jokes that you could tell your own self. That's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or a joke book. Oh, yeah, a really bad joke book. I've got an orange one. Knock, knock.
Who there?
Orange.
Orangey who?
Knock, knock. God, who's there?
Who's there?
I'll only do it 2 times. Aren't you glad? And you say orange again. I mean, it's kind of a silly joke, but... You do it 3 times, and then you're like, knock, knock, who's there? Orange. Aren't you glad? And you say orange again. That's one of those little kid jokes that...
Oh, that I didn't get.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
So, all of you actors and actresses out there, remember, how you perform is really how the world is going to be recreated.
And that's how you're going to be seen by whatever
Yep.
script you're putting out there.
That's right.
That really is, it's always been the deal, but you weren't the center of attention, at least you didn't make yourself that way.
So make your own script of who you are, what you are, why you are, and let everybody know what your script is, and then those of similar energies will work together and you'll have a performance that is beduming.
Mm-hmm. We all have that magnetism. North and south attract, north and north repels, south and south repels. So, find your north if you're a south, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that really is what's going on. It's going on continually. We are the antidote in the middle that can stop that flow.
And if
That's
you
what's so
perform
important.
your energy joyfully, you don't have to write animals into your script. the animals will be attracted to the joy. They'll be attracted to the reality, and you'll have animals performing with you.
Notice,
Telepathy.
This is a thought. Notice, how many animals are around you now.
Yes.
Like, let's just take an animal break. I'm going to look outside.
Okay.
We're in the studio right now.
Yep.
There's probably something down in that little water puddle on the roof, I bet you. A couple of things.
And on that balcony over there in that apartment building, there's a big old pigeon.
All right, so let's not exclude the pigeons and the ants.
Yeah.
And we have hummingbirds and crows and blue
I had a whole
jays.
bunch of hummingbirds this morning.
Yeah. I mean, we do entice them. We put bird food out, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And squirrels. We have like a little furry family.
Yes.
A little winged furry family.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But you got us to doing that. We live in great nature, our
God,
houses.
yes.
But being around you talked about that so much. George and I started paying more attention. And then we kind of wanted to nurture more of that. So we got bird feeders and we feed the squirrels. And now they're like our little friends.
And they are your friends because they are part of the play. Allow them the right to perform with you.
I get a kick out of when we went over to Anita's house, when you first went to her house.
Oh, yes.
And she's got the cutest little dog. And she was babysitting some other dog. And I'd seen her dog a couple times, and he'd come sniff me, I'm cool. But he immediately jumped in your lap.
And nuzzled my chin and kissed me and cuddled me. And, wonderful.
And if you feel like you need to see that energy because it's an energy that's captured in a picture, you can go to, and I think Chris will put our web page up here, www.theuniversallifealliance.org, and you can see that picture.
Yes.
In our events. But if you go to the Universal Life Alliance Facebook page, that actually is the cover page. I changed it. That's the one because the energy is so intense that people can feel that. And that was part of, Louis Schwartzberg on the Nature Summit I talked about, is that he said, bringing the digital images are just as good, especially if that's your intention, you set it up that way, to portray the vibrancy of nature, different pretty, buildings, pastures, it doesn't matter. But being able to bring that inside is really powerful and a great tool.
And so remember, every living thing is part of the play. So we have to work with each other. We have to protect so that our future generations are going to have a planet to live on.
If we stay isolated as the attempt has been made for the last year and a half to isolate us from ourselves and our family and friends, as we continue to honor that, this movement forward and the momentum that we need to accomplish that is lessened.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is a sense of urgency for all of us
Absolutely.
to really up-level our the importance, the value of our contribution to the life force of this planet at this time. You could wait till next year and decide to do something, and that would be welcomed as well. But we are forming and creating a new collective, and that's why it is so crucial for us to be out and talk and touch and smile and laugh.
Absolutely.
And put our knees up and make it think like it's a log. Because we are the actors. There's nobody else. And if we disintegrate, that's it. And that could have been a potential. I think we've passed that timeline.
Yep.
But it could have been. And we can just stay in this kind of namby-pamby sort of blah, blah, And maybe, what was the other thing I wanted to say? Make sure you start to create some of your own words, like the blah, blah.
Yes, yes.
And then communicate that with your family. When you say blah, blah, they're like, oh, it's the blah, blah.
Yep.
I mean, profanity works. Some words are great. They're just cherished, Some finger gestures are good, all of that. But I like the idea of making up some new words, We
and
encourage you
make
to do
up
that.
what works for you.
Yeah, even in another
You're
language.
the individual performer.
Even in another language.
Absolutely.
I'm sometimes asking people when they have an accent, like, where are you from? And I'm like, well, how do you say kiss my butt in Russian? They all sound remarkably the same.
Yes,
Certain
yes.
phrases. Oh, yeah.
So make life joyful. Remember the legends of the Tower of Babel.
Oh.
And it was created so that people would have to learn to live together and work together. They blew that one.
Oh, and even in the same household, in the same car, in the same conversation, people can be at odds.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
I mean, you think if you're the same family, you're going out on the same little journey in the same car, that some of the communication would be similar about destination. Not so much.
No. I grew up in a family where they were speaking 4 different languages, one conversation.
Like all the time.
And it was like they didn't understand each other's language, but they understood each other's energy.
And that's happening an awful lot with
Well.
me, and I bet you a lot of our listeners that's happening where someone will speak, that saying they speak with forked tongue.
Yes.
Yeah, really. Or, they have a really open heart, and you can feel that. You can read that in the words of books, and the intention. So you can feel.
Oh, absolutely.
We're encouraging you to acknowledge that you can feel the intentions of others. And even though you may not want to talk about that, you can use that as a spiritual acting tool to know how to navigate that particular train of energy. And it is
That was a great statement. That was a great tool. Practice it. Thank you, kid.
Yeah, it is about the willingness to practice, but just knowing that it's okay that you don't know everything. And so with that particular intention, I know that going to somebody else to ask them to tell me what's happening is like, okay, well, back off a little bit. Maybe you can just feel your way through things a little bit better.
And back to what Renata said earlier, gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Say thank you to people. Even if it's that you learned to say a word you'd never said before. Be gracious about it.
There is something about being gracious. Let me disclaim and stop being omniscient.
Yeah.
I can totally attack. If I feel like I'm
I've
attacked.
never noticed.
I know. And then it's like I've learned to let things come in and then let them filter down to my heart. Sometimes they don't even get there because it wasn't anything I had to respond to.
Exactly.
It's just some stuff and then in and out and you're good. But if it's something that really, I have to respond to, before I feel like I'm attacked and I attack back, I let it come down here. And what's that about?
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from? What stage were you on at that time when you felt that director go, and action?
Yeah.
Right? So I'm learning to decipher that a lot more efficiently and a lot more rapidly. Some days, not all days.
Oh, if you ever have the time when you are 100% perfect, you'll wind up in the spirit world.
Isn't that a joke, too? There's that. That's another great spiritual acting tool to know that it's not about perfection. If you want perfection, go to the movies.
Yeah.
Or tune into YouTube. They have some great movies, William.
You told me that, and I never knew that.
I didn't either. And, one of our, entertainments, George and I, is we love our little Netflix and our little nighttime, movie dates. But, it gets old.
Yeah.
I was looking for something new. So if I'm looking for something new, I need to suggest something new. So I'm like, George, let's do YouTube. So I'm looking and YouTube movies. And we watched a Korean film that was about the afterlife. And I'm like, oh, it's 2 hours long. But I got a little glimpse of history because all movies kind of display whatever the, prevailing bias is at the time. But then there was a certain level of openness. Like one of the comments, and this is different from what I've heard from you, in the afterlife, if you resolved your, disparity on planet, and took care of that, in the afterlife, you don't have to pay for that in terms of karma. It's like, you're good. You took care of that. When you pass afterlife, you're not going to be held accountable because you took care of it then. I'm like, oh, because I've seen some things where it's like, nope, afterlife, doesn't matter what you did here, you did it, it follows you.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, they've changed. They've allowed a little bit more in their creative flow and reaching out. It was a gem of a movie. Yeah. So YouTube's on our list now for movies. But now there's something interesting that earlier this week I was talking to you, and you said that word. Well, do you know what meta is, Renata? Have you seen that little bit about YouTube and not YouTube, Facebook. And what's brother man's name? Mark Zuckerberg, and how they're moving to the meta universe. I'm like,
yes.
Oh yeah, I kind of heard something about that. And then you said that there were a lot of Jewish people that were really upset about the use of that word meta.
Oh yes.
Because it does mean dark, and it does mean some other things as well. But you said, I can't imagine that a company as big as Facebook is not somewhat aware of, at least part of their population that they're opening up to might be offended by that, just like the Black Lives Matters kind of thing as well. And that may be true. And then I thought, coming full circle with how the manipulation is happening, yeah, they full well knew that was going to maybe cause some separation with people, and they'd be upset and in arms about it. Because quite frankly, we can't do anything about, the trajectory of where Facebook is going or what Mark Zuckerberg decides to do to diversify his company. I mean, the only choice, I keep it really simple, is you can continue to advertise on Facebook, Renata, and contribute to that, and then just totally disregard anything that happens to do with that, metaverse that he's going toward. But chances are, I'll dip down a little bit into that, because all of us are impacted by everything that's happening on our planet. You get that? So
Everything.
So to say, well, I'm going to just stand outside of that and I'm going to live off the grid. Okay, if you've got the resources, the time, the money, that can be a viable option for you. But a lot of us are having to evolve in the presence of the muck and ask for more of that love to come down on our planet and imbue all of our intentions and all of our actions 24/7, 365 with the evolutionary love, the universal connection that has always been there for us. But we have to choose it now. That's why it's such a crucial time. We have to choose this now.
Choice. Action. But non-aggressive action.
Oh, I like that. I was reading non-aggressive action a little bit earlier. I asked Mara, how do you share gratitude? And Mara lives in Brazil, and Mara responded back that there's somebody that she said, I'll just read it to all of you, okay? She says, here in Brazil, there are several messages spread like kindness begets more kindness. The author claims to be a prophet. He writes many beautiful sentences and puts it on overpasses at bus stops and train stations.
I love it.
So yeah, do you remember a long time ago the little rock thing? People would put messages on rocks and then leave them in different public places.
Yes.
Yeah, lately I found a couple of those. It's kind of cool. It's like a movement. So we're saying start your own movement, and you can borrow benefits that somebody else has done. You can take some rocks around your house and paint them and put I love you and put it at somebody's door. You don't have to make up a whole new thing. Each rock in nature is totally different. And you know how many rocks there are out there? I mean, there's 7.6 billion people, right?
Yes.
There's that many rocks quadrupled. I mean, think about that. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Just be with it and allow that in. Notice how much we say think when we don't really mean that. So you can't really separate the thinking apparatus in the mind of the human body and the spiritual part. It's not meant to be separate, but one is meant to dominate more over the other, I believe. So there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
And so when she makes a statement like that, there are some people who don't want to be in the same show. Let them go and build their own show.
Yeah. And to acknowledge you have that choice. And what's the big thing? I'd say the big little nugget for me today is do not doubt it cancels out.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Do not doubt it cancels out. Even though what you have envisioned or feel like you would like to see in your life, it may take a little bit longer than you had, thought about. But I have seen many times full circle how my core wishes and intentions have been granted to me many times over up to this point now.
Absolutely.
I feel really blessed. But if I overshadow it with my little pea brain expectations of what I think the universe is going to send to me and what I think it's supposed to look like, then, I think I get a smaller picture and a smaller feeling
Sure.
of the bigger connection that's happening with all of us all the time if we but allow it.
So, create a new script. Create a script where you can use your talent, your ability, but that will challenge you to find new approaches. I was talking with Noriko last night about the fact that a new film she's going to be working on is a character she's never played before, a violent, angry woman.
Ooh.
And she said, I can't do that. I said, have you ever known a violent, angry woman? She said, yeah. Then I said, you know how to do it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to live it, just take it on for the moment. Channel it.
Channel it. And that's another thing that in terms of this spiritual acting,
Yep.
is that now we're channeling our higher selves. Get used to that.
Exactly.
You ask for information, direct revelation comes to you. You're channeling your higher self, your essence. Listen to that.
Perfect.
I do remember seeing a movie that was really horrifying, and I can't even remember the name of it, but it was a woman that was in the welfare system. She beat up her kids for the money. It was a horrible movie. And she said, after each scene, we had to go back and hug each other, kiss each other, say I love you, before we could go out and actually do that. Just like your friend Noroko,
Yes.
You can tap into the energy of angry because it definitely is out there in consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
We've got everything that we can borrow, so we don't have to we don't have to reinvent that.
And when you're off the set for a moment, let go. Let yourself flow again. Don't carry that crap with you.
There's that allow. And I know after being around you for some time now that one of your biggest disciplines that you say people need to work at more is let that go.
Let it go.
Really like to let that, to be willing to allow to let that go.
Yep.
Now if it takes 10 years,
Be
it just
willing.
takes
That's
10
the point.
years.
Big
I know.
thing. The point is, yes.
And you're not implying that, in 5 minutes later it may not show up again, because it may. But
Oh, sure.
the willingness to allow, I love these words, the willingness to allow it to flow downhill and out of your life is like magical.
Yes.
It's like magical.
It's like taking an energy poop.
You were so friggin' proper and you said energy poop. You're channeling Renata right now.
Yes.
But I love that word. Isn't that a great phrase?
Yes.
Like you walk into a disharmonious environment at your office or even in your family, and they're bickering and they're at odds, and you ring the doorbell, you go in, you sit down, and you're like, where's your bathroom? I need to take an energy poop.
Yes.
And they would look at you like, what is she talking about? Then you go to the bathroom and you come back out. Are you curious what I meant? And you could break it down. You could have a nice conversation. They may have got you already.
Oh, yeah.
They may have got you already, but I'm an energy poop. When a situation is very disharmonious and, you don't feel like you want to curse, and you still want to be in the presence of these people, acknowledge what you need to do, what their energy does to you. That's what you're doing. I got to go take an energy poop. It's way too much in here.
Yep.
There you go.
So remember, it's all just one step in the script.
It's one step. And you can add, chapters.
Oh, sure.
I mean, if it's good, you can do a mini-series. People love those mini-series,
And the thing about spiritual acting is you can be spontaneous.
Oh, isn't that... Oh, I mean, even the time, the clock time.
That's right.
It's onto a whole spontaneous flip,
That's
too.
right.
You've got to allow that, Like, right place, right time, right timing.
Yes.
And the more I practice that intention, the more right place and right timing shows up for me. I think it's the same for all of us.
Yep.
The more you practice that, And maybe it's not about the Academy Award anymore. Do you know what I mean? We got to even make up a new thing that we're going for, because we're going to be writing some really good scripts.
Right. But there still needs to be some kind of award, some kind of acknowledgement.
Mm-hmm. Maybe some of our people will come up with an idea.
Spiritual
Acting Award. What would be a name for that?
Yeah. It won't be an Academy Award.
No.
Maybe it will be a something else.
And I mean, even in brainstorming, how cool is it to allow yourself to not even have an answer? Like, I don't know.
One of the things I love to do is when you have a party, 7 or 8 or 900 people, and you bring a topic.
Oh, that's a good one.
And you ask for solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And you find out that there are hundreds of solutions.
Hundreds, thousands of solutions. Now, this is synchronistic how all conversations in the universal collective kind of come and start to point, well, you got to be doing this. Collaboration, taking older information, making it new, tearing down the old infrastructure and replacing it with new solutions, that
Yes.
word solutions. I watched a Evolution of Medicine, and it was like a webcast in Colorado, so it was a live stream. This one guy was talking totally about thinking outside of the box with our pay-for-fee medical system that we have. It's just not efficient because it doesn't honor the patient, doesn't honor the doctor's time.
Yep.
It doesn't honor much of anything except for what it does now, which is not real efficient. So
Yeah.
he acknowledged that creating a think tank, which is what his company is about, it's a think tank to get people to consider outrageous ideas. One of them was primary care could be taken care of in a quarter the amount of money that is spent now by all Americans. In most countries, we spend, maybe 15 or 18 cents of every dollar on health care. And if you've got children that have some challenges, maybe it's more like 35 cents of every dollar on health care and managing disease. He thinks that particular model is all messed up. I would tend to agree. And so if you don't bring together people that think outside of an existing paradigm, an existing box, put them all together and come up with some new ideas, you're just going to have the same old stuff that doesn't work, and it really does stink.
Over and over.
And it becomes obvious it doesn't work.
Yep.
It's a structure, but it's not a good one. I'm not driving my car across that bridge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think about the healthcare thing because I'm going to be 65 pretty soon, so I've been getting solicited by Medicare. Oh, that's a frightening thought. Not being 65 and then the Medicare, but for someone like me to interface with our current medical system and pay for that is like, why would I do that? Why would I even contemplate wanting to be part of our Medicare system? But, I can't do this. Everything's horrible. So I'm like, well, Renata, why don't you intend to find the best practitioners? I know one, Dr. Peggy. So I will be talking to her. And then I know someone that kind of does that little going back and forth. Susan, she can kind of give you the idea of what's the best plan and stuff. And then I won't have that pressure on me. And that was my intention, like last year. Like, I really don't even want to deal with any of this. So just send me good people and someone that can help me navigate, then I'll be good. For instance. So all of those shifts can happen, and I don't have to go out and do all the footwork. That's what's going on collectively, so we can borrow from the energies that others have created for things that are really balanced. We can borrow that.
It's all part of creating the new play.
Yeah. I mean, you were in production for an awful long time, 40 years.
Oh, yeah.
And then some.
Plus.
Doing commercials and doing movies and having to fill in on different parts because somebody hurt their leg or whatever.
Yes.
And so you know about that adaptability. But that was for the screen. Now it's like we're saying those spiritual acting tools are real now for your screen. For all of us to take a part in this great big universal. Oh, hello, Mr. Crow.
Yes.
This great big universal movie.
What Renata was commenting on, I was on the production end of the stage play Pajama Game.
Pajama Game.
And
was that like Rock Hudson in that one?
No. One of the one of the actors fell off the stage, broke his leg. And they said, well, William, you're on. I go,
you're like, really?
I'm not an actor. He said, well, you are now. Because I knew everything that was in the script. And so I said, well, the gods don't give you anything unless you're capable of doing it.
And everything happens for a reason. There's that sometimes just to mess with you. That's a good one sometimes.
And so I just said, okay, and I put on the garb, and there I went.
I know, and you said you weren't really fond of like keeping memorabilia and pictures and that of your past thing. I'd love to see. I've seen a couple pictures, but that would have been classic, But anyhow.
Well, gang, it's time for us to be heading out into the universe.
It is. Oh, I have one commercial though.
Go for it.
Oh yeah, we're over time, but it's okay. November 13th and 20th in the home office, I am doing a class, a play shop on multidimensional aromatherapy. It's using essential oils and using vibrational remedies as I've done for the last 25 years or so, and creating products to unstick you and to assist you in feeling vital and healthy and happy. So, and it's 12 to 4, it's a Saturday. If you go to our website, theuniversallifealliance.org, and click on Renata World, you can find that information and you can sign up, or you can call me, okay? And we can just chat about it.
And I personally know the value of her work because the medical profession in 2001, when all of this happened to my leg, they told my family he might live 5 years. That was in 2001.
I know, you're a testament to amazement.
So a lot of it has to do with things that Renata has created that fit me.
And especially since you moved up here and closer to us, we've been able to kind of work more consistently. But thank you so much for that. That's very gracious. Thank you.
Because we all have to share our insights, our knowledges. Doesn't mean you have to appreciate the individual, but appreciate that Earth consciousness is here to heal us.
If we allow that, huh?
Allowance.
There's that. So get on your spiritual acting gear.
And play.
Right. And then allow,
So,
yeah.
Go in peace, go in light, and have a wonderful tomorrow, unless you don't.
Unless you don't, it's your choice.
Okay. Take care, gang.
We'll see you next week.
¿Cómo se encuentra el día de hoy? Soy Ana y estaré tomando su pedido.
Hola, muchas gracias. No sabemos